So you'll be hearing a few things about MadeToTag, which is a plugin for Adobe InDesign. And normally I do what I do now in over 3, 4, 5 hours. I'll have to condense that into a little bit less time, so you have the opportunity to get some lunch at least. I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can. There are actually on our website extended demos where you can find out more about several details. So my goal is to just give you a feel for what MadeToTag could do for you. The challenge is the same as what has been achieved by Access PDF for Word, by Access 4. You have mainstream tools like Word for a Word document and InDesign for more layout-centric documents. Tools that everybody uses anyway. You can't force them to use anything else because it's the thing you use. And still, if you have the goal to make documents accessible, you could get very far with just using Word or InDesign. But to go the last mile, so to speak, can be very challenging. Requires a lot of manual work in InDesign or Word or Acrobat or whatever, and it's so painful. That was not me. So painful that most people tend to avoid it. And our goal is to make life reasonably easy on the InDesign side, so that people can continue to focus on what they're actually wanting to do, like putting a document together that is well styled, looks good, is useful, and so forth, and kind of be able to just take care of accessibility on the side. There will always be some extra work, but that work should be made as easy as possible, and you should make it as efficient as possible to achieve the goal. With that in mind, we have invented MadeToTag, which essentially looks like that. I'll occasionally enlarge portions of the screen so you can actually find out what's on there. And this is a tool that offers you to go through the necessary tasks in a couple of steps, taking care of style sheets and content order and tables and alternate text for images and so forth. There could be other approaches to it, but this is one that has proven to be useful to most users as far as we can tell so far. And I will just go through each of these steps. I will not do everything, but enough for you to understand how this works. So one important thing is to get your tags right, so that a certain type of text or content is tagged with a PDF tag that actually matches that content. So the typical thing would be a heading, should be a heading tag, and list should be tagged with list items and so on. And MadeToTag makes it relatively easy to do that. I've just picked a flyer that we put together for the PDF Days Europe earlier this year. It's one of those documents that doesn't start at the upper left and it goes on to the lower right. Actually, this kind of starts on page 3 and then goes on to other pages. But before we talk about content order, let's look at the tags assigned to text. So now you could go through every style sheet definition of InDesign and just figure it out, but that's a very tedious process. Instead, what you could do is use a highlighting feature that will assign color highlighting to different types of text using different types of tags. And even if you didn't do anything so far, you will realize that some of the text already is associated with the right tags. Because InDesign is doing the right thing for lists if you use the list feature. So another reason to use the tool that you actually have and not kind of just make text look like a list, but use the list feature to format lists. Now what's missing is obviously the headings that don't have heading tags yet, and the normal text doesn't have the paragraph tag yet. So again, you could go to the style sheet definitions in InDesign and just do it there, but instead what you could do is use one of the many keyboard shortcuts that MadeToTag offers, and just say, let's say for the big one, we want to make this in H1, just use a certain shortcut, and you barely see it, but it's in orange now, and then maybe these are heading level 2 headings. You go there, and then there's some that are heading level 3, this is another H2. Then you maybe go through all the body text, which you just tag using the P tag, and just use shortcuts. And relatively quickly, you can go through the text and just do the right thing, so to speak. So within a relatively short time, I have assigned the right tags to each of the types of text. The good thing, the color highlighting helps me to understand what I've done, what I've not yet done. It also helps me to determine whether a certain piece of text actually is a heading. If I see orange on a long block of tiny text, I probably use the wrong tag, because probably it's body text and it should be tagged with a paragraph P tag. So relatively quick, and because again, you get avoided if you actually use style sheets and not manual formatting all the time, same as in Word. And as I probably don't use more than 10, 20, maybe 30 paragraph styles, I would probably be done very quickly. And I would scroll through the other pages. This is a short document. In a longer document, I would scroll through the other pages and quickly find out whether all the text has the right tags, whether I missed anything, and so on. So I'm already done now to assign in the right tags. That's good. The next step that MadeToTag proposes is to define the content order. Who of you is actually using InDesign? There's quite a few. So as you know, and everybody else could guess, it's a layout-centric tool. You can put stuff on the page anywhere you want. Yeah? You could even make a text object for each and every paragraph. That would be stupid, but there are people who actually do that. You will have to, because the beginning of the text could be in the upper right, continues on the left, goes on in the middle, and there's a last piece at the bottom. There is no obvious way to determine, but at least not by a piece of software, where to start, where to continue, and where the end of the story is. So somebody has to tell the document where that is. Again, like similar to style sheets, there is a feature in InDesign since InDesign CS5.5, quite a few years now, where you could use an InDesign feature to do that. It's called the articles panel, and it's kind of just, it's not more than that, it's just the definition of the reading order. So using it doesn't change any of the appearance of your file, it just says, well, this comes first, this comes next, and so on. And you could drag each and every object into that panel, and just use InDesign and be done with it. Again, MadeToTag has a few things to offer here, mainly keyboard shortcuts just to make you faster and make it easier to avoid errors. So you could, let me see, this is probably the start of the whole thing. I use a certain keyboard shortcut to create a new article. It picks up the beginning of the text, so I could name the article. Let's do it like that. And then I just, and actually if you watch carefully in the upper right, I have the articles panel. So what MadeToTag does, it tells InDesign to actually include this item in this new article. And then I continue, I probably want to pick up this one here. Maybe the background image, maybe not, depending on what your preference is, maybe the logo and the object below it. And I actually have to figure out where to continue. I believe it goes on here. And it goes on there, and then some more. And maybe now, if you have many objects on the page, you're not quite sure whether you actually included everything in the reading order. There's another keyboard shortcut where you can say, well, show me everything that has not been associated with an article yet, stuff I still have to work on. And that stuff I forgot, or maybe just didn't look at yet. And of course, the red background is not content. I can just skip that. MadeToTag will make sure it gets tagged as an artifact afterwards, and also the smooth shade at the bottom is not part of content. But obviously, this text item here should be included. Let me do that. Look again, so that is gone, but still there's smaller items on the bottom that need to be included in the actual content. Let me do that. And so I'm done now with the content that's here. So a relatively quick and efficient way to just add stuff in the right order to the content. I could still use the articles panel from InDesign to move stuff around if I misplaced it. Yeah, I could use InDesign features to go to the stuff, but especially with longer or complex documents, it's relatively difficult now from using the articles panel to understand whether the order is actually correct. Yeah, you will see this if you tag a magazine or something like that, you really get lost in the sea of content. So a very cool thing here is that you can at any time ask that the whole document be shown in a structural view or just the current article, which would be the same in this case. Particularly preview of the current article, if we create a structural preview and you will recognize it being used in some other tools that come out of Berlin, Germany, It's picking up the content and suddenly creating a tag PDF in the background, extracting the content from the PDF and displaying it in this structural view, which at least from my taste makes it relatively easy to go through it, to double check, for example, the headings, are the headings assigned to the right part of the text, or the list formatted as list and so on. Does the order make sense? Is there a split paragraph, a paragraph broken in half just because of somebody using the wrong carriage return and so forth? So maybe you find a problem, you'll have to fix it, but it gives you a quick way of finding out whether the order that you established is actually correct, and also you can double check whether the tags that have been used are the right tags. So far so good, we already have made some good progress. Next thing is there tend to be photos, images, that kind of stuff in the content, where we have to assign some alternative description. And again, you could be using InDesign tools. There are built-in tools in InDesign. You go from one image to the other and just double-check, add the text that is necessary in some way. But it would be easier if I could just give a list of images I have to work on. And there's a show, just to enlarge it briefly, there's a show overview, maybe the most important button in this step. And clicking on it, I will get a list, in this case a relatively short list, of the images that are associated with articles. It will not ask me for alternate text, for decorative images that might be used as a background. And most of them are filled out, some ones are filled out already, but let me add this one. And I could just add this and fill it out. I can also ask MadeToTag to jump to each image, which is not important on the small document, but if you have a 32-page document, you would want to look at the image in the context to kind of be the most useful alternate description for it. So now I have activated this feature, and it centers the image that I'm working on the screen, so I see it in context. So I'm done so far with the alternate descriptions for images. The next step would be, at least according to MadeToTag, to look at the metadata. It's an item that you can be done with relatively quickly. The one thing you should absolutely ensure that there's a meaningful title entry for the metadata. So that's the label for that field is in bold, and all the other labels are not in bold. Just to make sure, don't forget this one. It's actually required by PDF viewer to provide a title. The other items are optional, but any person putting document in the public space should really think about filling these out as well. Again, you could be doing this with InDesign dialogues, but this is just putting it in front of you while you're working on the aspect of accessibility. We have another one that may not be important to certain regions, because I know everybody in England just speaks English, but there are countries like Switzerland that have at least 3 official languages, if not even more. I think it's 4 altogether. And where you tend to have documents that have not just one language. It's very easy to overlook problems where you use the same style sheet for German and Swiss, German and French text, and you forget to adjust the style sheet for the French text to reflect that it is in French. You would normally want to do this anyway for hyphenation and for spell checking, but it's also very useful for any text that needs to be presented through text-to-speech. Now, how do you find out whether I have used the right languages in all the paragraph styles and character styles? You could go through the InDesign dialog for that, takes a while. You could as well highlight the use of languages. So in this case, we see there's probably just 2 languages being used, and if you look more closely at the MadeToTag dialog, you can see there's some German being used and some English, and also some other stuff that's not used here. It gives you the number of characters, the percentage of that text. And because of the color, it becomes relatively easy to find out whether everything is okay. And actually, So green is English, and this kind of red is German. This is German text, but it's associated with English. This is not good. Again, I could use a keyboard shortcut, and I can just do that, and do it here because there's the same issue, and make sure that all the German text is actually associated with the German language. Also to show you how far this goes, so in these bullet items there's mixed tags, so you have some English and some German inside the same line. If you use character styles correctly, you will be able to associate the right language with each of these. And also fixing this would be straightforward. So that's, I think, pretty cool if you want to make sure that part is working correctly as well. Next, we have something I will show in a different document. We can offer you something to get your tables right. And then essentially, once you're done, and you're mostly done by now, if you carefully follow all these steps, you'll also take care of creating the PDF file. InDesign itself does a pretty decent job of exporting InDesign documents to tag PDF. But there are a couple of shortcomings and outright bugs in some cases, and we've invested a lot of time to fix all these. So you get a better tag PDF export from using MadeToTag as you would get directly out of InDesign. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. You don't have to kind of worry about it, we just do it. But it's important you go through the Create PDF button that we have in this dialog, and not use the built-in export feature for PDF, because then most of the advantages you can get out of MadeToTag will be lost. There's one other thing, and we already saw that tables can be interesting, to say the least. This is a table from some bank explaining to you the fees and the benefits for certain types of accounts at their bank, like associated with credit cards and stuff like that. So at least certain Swiss bank in this case, they are required to provide all the information in a certain fashion because they're partly state-owned. So how do we do this? If you look carefully, you have a couple of header cells. So there's the top row that obviously works as a header cell, but also on the left you have row headers, and they are subdivided into further row headers. And if you look even inside the table, where's my cursor? There it is. So this thing saying electronisch and auf Papier is kind of it's subheaders for part of the table. And I don't know of any tool except doing it by hand in Acrobat, which takes more time than you take, and you think about quitting your job if you have to do this on a regular basis. You can do it more efficiently here in MadeToTag. So let me show you how this conceptually works, and it feels like it could be challenging at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually relatively easy. So you go to the table, and you use some options here in MadeToTag. We also have options for simpler tables. We can just say I have 2 rows of table headers and then 2 columns of table headers, and just enter the according numbers, and we do everything else for you. But in this case, you would need smart headers, as we have called them. You want to highlight so you can see what you're doing, and you actually have to activate the edit mode. So what happens now is that you could, for example, select a cell, and then tell the document which other cells are kind of governed by this header cell. So to which cells does this header cell apply? And you use the command key or command shift keys to do the next step, and then you use the mouse and you just kind of drag across this, go just until here, and you say these blue cells, they are kind of described or governed by this header cell at the top. And you can do this for the next items. You could as well select several header cells, and as long as the dependent cells follow certain logic, you could just move your mouse across, And then you say on a column by column basis, these content cells are governed by the header cell at the top. And if you're not sure whether you did the right thing, you can still just select one and find out whether it works as I'm just advertising it. What about some of the other ones? So this item Leistungen applies to the ones below, but not to the empty cells. I would want to skip these. So I have to do it click by one. But then this one here actually is a header cell that applies to these 3 items. And this applies to this item, this one to these 4 items, this one to the 3, and so on. So, and now these ones actually apply to the items on the right. So what you could do is you can select these ones and just drag across like this. And I've forgotten this one here, so let me just see. Okay, so on a row by row basis, in this case, I have told the document this is a header cell describing the ones to the right. Now what about these guys here? So one thing I have to make sure is they're actually also governed by the one at the top. So I can also go the other way around and I have to press Command Shift. I can say this one is governed by the one above. And this one is also governed by the one above. But at the same time, these 2 guys define what is inside these data cells. And again, this one is governed by the one at the top. Same here. And again, these 2 define what's below them. Again, I forgot 1 or 2. I can always double check whether it actually works. And I worked through the whole table. I will spare seeing the rest because it's the same again. And define the whole logic of the table. What is described by what? What is governed by something else? And so on. And I can go through the table in various ways. So, for example, I can go to the top one, which is Leistungen. I see a certain lighter blue that is directly dependent. I see a slightly darker blue, which is dependent on the lighter blue cells. And then, at least for this area that I actually did, the 3rd level headings have yet other cells that are actually governed by them, which then in this case are data cells. So, and you can go through the table and figure this all out. And then in relatively short time, I believe you can even structure a pretty complex table. And so far we haven't found any table that we cannot structure, so we believe it's relatively robust. We have a couple of customers with lots of tables to work on, and so far they seem to be happy. So, as I'm about to run out of time anyway, and have to make sure you actually do get lunch relatively soon, I'll leave it at that. I'm here, Karina is in the back, who can also show you anything else and provide with additional details. And thanks for listening, and I'll be open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Olaf. Are there questions? You have to have a chance for questions before you get to eat lunch.
Yeah, sorry for taking your time, but I think this is really interesting, and we use EPUB as well for, we convert to EPUB, and we have a lot of issues with tables when you get to really small devices and it doesn't really render well. How does this work when you then create the PDF? Is there any flexibility in that table?
So a PDF is a PDF. So we just write out a PDF format if you want standard. In a case like this, where you have a sizable table, yeah, that you will not easily look at one time on your smartphone screen, you will have to depend on tools that provide you easier access to the content. And a very good example would be the VIP PDF reader, which is not available yet, or the other tool for smartphones, and the other tool that Marcus was showing yesterday, but you would need that kind of tool. that translates the content in the PDF UA file into something you can more easily consume on the smartphone, on a small screen device. And there are several approaches to doing that. So Marcus was showing one, or pointing to one. VIP PDF really has a feature where you can make the header cells sticky, and then just move the content cells around, and the header cells will adjust as you move through the content. So you might be looking only at 2 or 3 content cells with the header cells aligned next to them. And I think it's a very good approach for getting access to complex tables. In that case, it's based on an HTML export, but you could do it directly by just picking parts of the rendered PDF page and make the header cells sticky, keeping the appearance they have, and then just move around the content cells and adjusting header cells as needed. So you can look at 1 or 2 at a time, because your smartphone is not good for looking at much more. The important thing is we are enabling this approach by supporting PDF UA. So if documents really are PDF UA conforming, you can build tools like that. If you can't rely on good material in the PDF files, it's next to impossible to provide that functionality. And I know from a couple of discussions, some of which I cannot say much about because they're on the NDA, but I expect a lot more happening also in the field of smartphones in, let's say, I don't know, the next 12 months. So things are about to change in terms of making consuming PDF content in small form factor devices easier for display-able and non-display people.
Other questions?
Yeah, it was I just noticed that you are able to save as PDF 2A.
Yep.
Does it have any effect on the accessibility and the UA compliance that you are saving as another?
No, both the PDFA standard and the PDF UA standard have been developed by ISO in a fashion that the same file could conform to PDFA and PDF UA at the same time. That's what we are essentially offering here. For some documents, it have to be archived. You have to conform to the PDFA standard. At the same time, they should be accessible, so they should conform to the PDF UA standard. You can just create files that conform to both to make archivists and users happy about it.
And this factor is already recognized. For example, the United States Library of Congress specifically recommends that in addition to PDFA, for archival purposes, you should the ideal format for an archived document is both PDFA and PDF UA conformance. Other questions? Everybody wants some lunch, huh? Thank you very much, Olaf.
Thank you.